Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another beautiful Wednesday, right in the middle of the week, hump day. I hope you guys are ready for more orchestration learning, because that's what we got on the plate for today. So we're going to be exploring some of the basics of 3 and 4 part harmony today, sort of a follow-up to what we did a couple weeks ago. We are going to be branching into other themes other than just writing out 3 and 4 note harmonies as we go on in this new little series. But today, you're stuck with me for this one. 3 and 4 part harmony, what is it? Well, it's oftentimes considered to be some of the basics when you're starting to learn how to write out for different voices in your orchestra. And it's commonly written out especially for choir music, because in choir music you have the soprano, alto, tenor, bass, so you have those 4 voices you need to stick with. Learning these basic principles of how to write out 3 and 4 part harmony are really, really important, and they're extremely useful skills to learn, especially if you're just starting on the journey to learn how to write better music for orchestra. If you have ever listened to a lot of the classic 8-bit retro sort of video game music, it's also important if you want to write in that style as well. Because when you look at a lot of these older 8-bit style music soundtracks, like Pokemon, Sonic, what have you, all those really old classics, they were extremely limited in the amount of voices they had to use. So almost all of the music written for games back in those days was in 3 or 4 parts or less. So learning these skills is very useful for a wide array of genres when you start looking at how this is used to write out different types of music. So let's start with 3 part harmony. It's kind of the basis of what we're going to be looking at today. This is a way to write out music using only 3 voices. You only can have 3 notes playing at any given time. And whether you're playing them on strings, brass, winds, piano, synths, what have you, you can only use 3 voices, no more. As we go through this today, I highly encourage you all to write a little bit along with me as well, because it makes great practice, and I want to see what you guys make up for practice as well. So as we're going along and you're making your own thing, feel free to send it to me. More than happy to look at it. So first of all, let me just write in a little bit of a basic chord progression for us to look at and explore some 3 part harmony. And that'll be up in 3, 2. All right, so what we're looking at right now is a very, very basic form of 3 part harmony. We only have 3 voices, and we've written out some chords here to utilize those 3 voices as best we can right now. This is using only the most basic of chord progressions so that we can build on the foundations of what it is to use 3 part harmony. However, this is where composers are forced to get really creative when writing out their music, is when you add on limitations such as this. When you only have 3 voices, there's only so much you can do, and you have to force out that extra little bit of creativity, because now you have those limitations. And a fun challenge to actually try at home is to actually give yourself certain limitations when writing music. I find that actually is a great way to help gain new inspiration and new insight into what you are making. But that's enough about that. How can we make this little orchestration more interesting? Well, let's listen to it first. It's only a short little bar of 4 chords. Now, there are a whole slew of tools and techniques that composers have developed over the years, going all the way back to before Beethoven and before the first ever written music was ever released. There are thousands of techniques that have been developed over time. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go over all of them today, but let's look at some of the 3 basic tools that we have to work with. We have harmony, rhythm, and melody. The melody line is going to be our top line here, which, as you can see, just goes E, D, F, E. Very, very simple melody line. And that, combined with the chords underneath of it, gives us a nice little C, D, a G7 chord, and then back to C for a nice little finish. How can we make this more interesting? Well, let's start with the melody. The melody is very simple right now. It's only 4 notes. What if we start adding in some 16th notes? We'll maybe add in some extra rhythms, and we might actually modulate those rhythms onto the chords beneath it. So let's take a look at it again. We're gonna add in some complexity, and we're gonna see how that gets us in 3, 2. All right, So we've taken it apart a little bit and we've added in just a little bit more complexity. So what I've done here is I've branched off of those 4 main notes in my melody. I've branched off the E, D, F, E. I've added in a short little rundown to the D, and I've let the F resolve down to the D here as well to give us that G, B, D chord here before rising up to the E. And we've also added in some rhythms in our chords here, and let's listen to it and hear how it sounds now. It sounds a lot more interesting. There's more interest there. The rhythms are more complex and the melody has more detail to it. Another detail I added in here is this sort of sustain note where the note from the chord below actually sustains into the next chord before resolving down into the B, and it gives you that little bit of a rhythm. And this is where it gets extremely interesting, because once you start adding notes that are outside of a standard 3-note chord triad, you can add a whole lot more interest to your piece and your composition as a whole. For example, is this F note here in my C, E, G chord? No, it absolutely isn't. But adding in those extra notes for those short little bits adds in that extra little bit of detail. And is this C note part of my G, B, G chord? Again, absolutely not. It's carried over from the note below. But these are what help give your pieces detail, these extra little snippets and harmonies that you put in. They create new textures, they create new emotions. Another technique that we see here that a lot of composers use is a pedal note, where they actually have one note sustained throughout the entire piece to add in that sort of root, that sort of ground, while everything else moves around them. This isn't something used in all music, and it isn't something used in the entirety of a song in the music that it is used in, but it is another tool that you can use to add interest into your pieces. So now that we've sort of walked through 3-part harmony, let's go into 4-part harmony and see how we can add even more interest and detail to this. Because now, 4-part harmony, we have a 4th voice, and that 4th voice usually takes place in the bass. So all the way at the bottom, where a lot of the roots of your emotions come from. So let's go into this rhythm here and let's give it a bass line. And that'll be done now. So I've added in a bass line really quick underneath here, and it's not a super complex bass line, but it helps give us that sort of extra rhythm we're looking for. Let's zoom in a little bit and we'll take a look at it. So after I wrote out my main 3-part harmony on top, I actually extrapolated some of those notes for the bass line below. I took some of the root notes from the chords and put them in, as you can see here with the C and the G and the C over here. Root notes are an excellent choice to put in your bass because they always have such strong emphasis when combined with the chords above. You can also use 3rds, 5th, and 7th in the bass. However, those sort of inversions will offer extremely different types of sounds, even though they're written out using the same chord. That's something we're going to explore in the future though. So now that we have 4 voices, let's listen to this again and hear how adding in that 4th bass note affected this. All of a sudden, the low end's there, and using those root notes in the bass line especially helps drive home the qualities of each of those chords. That C major chord that we are using majorly in this song, it has a very sort of positive vibe to it, and combining that with the G chord, with those 2 major chords, the 1st and the 5th of the C major scale, you get this very, very positive feeling when you go from this to this, which is essentially what we're doing here. Now you can, of course, break down the rhythms even more. You can add even more detail. You can make it as complex or as simple as you want. It all really depends on what do you want to do and what is the theme of what you're going for. If you want to make a waltz, then you need a waltz rhythm. You need that dun 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 dun. If you want a sort of march, then you need that march rhythm where it's boom, 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 boom. You need to reflect those in your pieces. Spreading those out using 3 and 4-part harmony in your notes, especially, and not just your percussion, is a great way to add that extra little bit of interest. When I was first learning how to compose and how to write music, learning 3 and 4-part harmony was one of the things that really sped up my progress. Like it exponentially boosted how fast I was improving and how much better I got over time, because now that you understand the basics, you can really start to develop your skills. And once you know the guidelines, you can start to break them a little bit and twist them and do your own creative thing with them. Another great way to use 3 and 4 part harmony as well, when you're just starting to work out the boneworks of your piece, when you're just figuring out your melody and your chords, and you're writing them out in this sort of 3 and 4 part style, is to do it all on one instrument, such as a piano. A piano is an amazing instrument of choice for writing out a sketch of your track and getting everything sorted out. Once everything's written out in the piano, you can expand it down to other instruments and take chunks from the piano roll, put it into the flutes, put it into the percussion, put it into the brass, or put it into your synths or whatever you have in whatever style you're writing. And you will be able to modify it from there. But writing it out in a piano as well, using a sort of piano sketch, is a great idea if you are choosing to write it out, especially using 3 and 4 part harmony, because it really gives you that all-in-one piece when you're using that instrument. Now, as always, I hope you guys kind of made your own thing as we were going along in this. I hope you guys can send some to me, and I am more than willing to answer any questions you guys have about 3 and 4 part harmony in the comments below. But that's where we're going to leave it for this week. I hope you guys found it informative as always, and I hope you guys enjoyed, because we're going to be back next week with more. So enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the weekend when it comes, and enjoy creating, enjoy making the things that you do make. So I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.